Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our online lessons for the new year, I suppose we should say. We are in the spring semester, and so the focus of this semester is going to be argument and logic, focused on the two final modes of writing that you will be facing. The first that we're going to focus a lot of our time on is the synthesis. Now, as you can see, this is essay number 1 of the FRQs. What again happens is essay 1 is going to be a synthesis, essay 2 is a rhetorical analysis, and essay 3 will be an argument. All three of these does make an argument. The skill sets that I taught you last year were focused on language analysis, but at the same time I helped make sure that the SOAPS model was in place. This ensured that you had an argument that you were making while writing. So what we're doing is taking the same skills from last year, and now we are going to enhance and focus on beyond language, using language to develop a stronger point. So having said that, let's start with some basic facts. The synthesis essay will take 55 minutes, which means I can never give it to you on a Tuesday or a Thursday. It has to happen on a Schedule 1. It does also mean that when you walk into the class, I'm going to start the timed right. The reason this happens is because you have 15 minutes to read the materials and then a following 40 minutes to write your essay. Now, should you read faster? Yes, you do have more time. This is how a lot of people do finish the AP exam ahead of schedule. You have that 15 minutes ahead of time as a leeway for reading, and then you have 40 minutes per essay. So really, the faster you read and the more critical you are, and the faster you write, those are all factors in why someone might finish 25 minutes before the end of the actual test. Now, another fact that you're going to hear me repeat frequently, using all 7 sources on a synthesis essay does not always mean you're going to do amazing. So let's start by looking at a synthesis essay. You'll actually look at this tomorrow in class. This is what a synthesis looks like. So you have 7 sources right here. You can see in the directions. You have a suggested time of 40 minutes. Now this is the start of the actual free response question. You can see right there I have a total of 2 hours. That's your testing time with the 3 essays. So this will have 7 sources linked to it. Now this question requires you to synthesize a variety of sources into a coherent, well-written essay. When you synthesize sources, you refer to them to develop your position and cite them accurately. Your argument should be central. The sources should support this argument. Avoid merely summarizing sources. Even in the directions, they do not want you to summarize these sources. Now, the reason is when all the graders are put together, if let's say I am a grader, I will only grade 1 of the 3 essays. I become an expert on 1 of the 3 essays. I memorize all the pieces of that essay or of the materials that were provided to you. So they don't need you to summarize. They know the materials. Now, you're also going to see this is the first time that they've actually asked for direct and indirect citations. With a rhetorical analysis, you never have to have parenthetical citations unless there are 2 authors that are being represented. Does that happen? Quite frequently. Will it happen to you? Most certainly, definitely, at least while you are my student. So keep in mind, citations are only required when we have multiple sources that we're using for information. Now, most of the synthesis essays will come with an introduction, which again we'll go through tomorrow, and then you'll have the assignment listed, and then you will see all of the sources listed at the very bottom. Now, you are to develop a position on whether or not the penny coin should be eliminated. Synthesize at least 3 sources for support. So over the next couple days, we're actually going to be discussing this prompt. We're going to break it down to a complete understanding as how you would approach this prompt. But as you can see, we're looking at making a stance. You have to defend or challenge the penny being in circulation. As you scroll through the rest of this document, you'll notice that there's source A, here's an article, source B, another article, and some of the sources can bleed onto a second page, but again, you have 15 minutes to read them. It's not until you get to like source E when we have a chart, and then source G, the image that they provided you, because again, there's always an image. Here's a picture of the penny. Sometimes they're going to have really elaborate pictures, and sometimes they want to just make sure you fully understand what they're talking about, which again, we will discuss this more in class, and I'm sure we will have some very fantastic things to say about the penny. So here's your skills being assessed, and you can see on the right hand side I have a Bloom's taxonomy chart. The very three bottoms, so this knowledge, understanding, and application, these three levels are just the basic rudimentary steps to understanding everything. What we test you on with all three modes is the analysis, the synthesis, and the evaluation. This essay alone challenges those three top tiers. So with analysis, I'm going to ask you questions like, how are the sources used and why? Does source A relate to source C? Is there a relationship? Why would there be a relationship? Are they trying to make a point a little bit more effectively clear for you? With synthesis, the next step, can you take information that is presented and mold that information to make a cohesive argument? Can you take 7 sources, choose 3 or 4 sources, and make an argument? And of course, evaluation, can you determine the merit and value of the sources that are presented? Can you choose the best information to support your stance? Now, your task is essentially, let's break down what you're actually going to be looking at. I need to see that you have the ability to infer a relationship. You're looking at the actual sources, and so if I have A through G, 7 sources, can you find a relationship between source A and C? Does C have a relationship with source G? Can you be selective then, not only in that relationship, but can you be selective in the most important materials that's presented across 7 sources? Now, please understand, this is not meant to scare you. This is not a new skill that I'm teaching you. The only difference is now you have to think on your feet. You have 40 minutes to decide your stance, and in that 40 minutes, make your point 100% clear. So here's some tips, and then tomorrow we'll spend the majority of our time interacting with the penny prompt. So first tip, be selective in your information. While you're reading, my suggestion is to make 2 columns, positive and negative. Put information that supports one side, supports the other side. One of the things you'll find is that you may be completely against the topic, but you might find more information that supports the topic, and it might be easier for you to make an argument against your own belief. So be selective in what you're presenting. Make sure that the information itself does allow you to make an argument that works and is cohesive. It's not always just writing what you honestly feel. Last year's prompt was to evaluate if college education was actually important in our day and age. Well, it's ironic, of course, because we're taking a test for college credit and you're asking if college is in fact important. But aside from that little moment of irony, you're still having to be selective in what you want to say. What information will help you? Don't let your emotions override. The second, do not critique the sources. College Board has searched for these sources. They made about 10 to 15 different prompts to use, and this one is the special one that they chose for you. Don't critique them. Don't tell College Board that they don't know what they're doing. Instead, focus all your energy to discuss the relationship that exists between the sources. This gives you a lot more to say. It makes you sound so much more mature, and in that same moment, you suddenly are that diamond in the rough, the student who goes, I'm going to make this work, and I'm going to talk about how source A says this, and source C says this, and there's this teeny tiny relationship that's only apparent if you're paying attention. That's what we want to see. That's how College Board wants to reward you. Can you be that student who sees relationships that aren't outright stated? The third one's the big one, never summarize the source. Remember, especially if, let's say, we do the penny prompt, you and I are going to spend 2 to 3 days discussing and breaking apart that entire packet of information. So based on that, you are an expert. I am an expert. You don't need to say, source A says this. Instead, you're going to jump right into the argument and the information presented of source A. And finally, always, always answer the prompt. Don't deviate. Don't let your soapbox situation happen. This is the hardest part of the spring, is just making sure you do not end up on a soapbox and lose sight of your task. As long as you don't do any of those issues, you will excel and you will enjoy and love every moment of the spring semester. But if you have a hard time keeping your emotions in check, it's going to be a little difficult because your emotions have to be supported by a lot of logic. So it's a fun year. It's going to be an incredibly unique semester for you, and hopefully you have a whole lot of fun. Thank you for watching this video. I will see you all tomorrow when we return to class to discuss the ever thrilling and exciting penny prompt. And I do say that with sarcasm because it's pennies, and I know if you work in retail you hate pennies. But point aside, you guys have a great evening. Thanks for being such awesome students. See you tomorrow.